A red hand looms over from the north. Beware! I don't know why I said it like that. This is a propaganda poster from the 60s if the Kalmar Union was still a thing. Again, the Kalmar Union was a real-life historical union between all the Nordic lands. But this looks like it's even bigger than just that because they have the Baltic states and possibly Kaliningrad. And because it's the 60s and they're using the term red, I'm assuming this is a communist union as well. That would certainly cause the US to worry quite a bit. Imagine a Cuban Missile Crisis except the missiles are in Greenland. But who knows, maybe in this timeline, maybe the US isn't even there. 10 out of 10 map. This is the brand new American state known as New Wyoming. As you can see, it is situated right in between where the former nation of Yugoslavia was. There's even a county called Kosovo. And I love that we went with the traditional design of classic US state borders, just a square. So this is a universe where instead of just allowing the Yugoslavian nation to split apart into several countries, the US just decided to colonize this land and slap a brand new state in it. This reminds me of how the island of Sicily tried to become the 49th state of the US. Obviously the 49th state because this is back in 1943. So this wouldn't be the first time the US has almost grabbed a piece of Italy. I think what makes this alternative history map so good though are the county names. Like they still squeezed in the old nations here, of course with the rectangular borders. There's Montenegro, there's Serbia, there's Bosnia. Of course a Bosnia with no coastline. This is an area of Croatia. But then there's probably my favorite county, Old Jersey. You kind of have to name a part of Italy Old Jersey if the US takes it over. Finally, there's an East Virginia. Does anyone realize just how problematic this state would be? Florida would have some crazy competition. What if the United States decided to make Israel? And it is an Israel smashed into the four corners state of New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado. They still have the same flag. The largest city is Hebron. They speak Hebrew, but recognized languages are also English and Navajo. So this makes me think it's going to function like a Native American reservation, and they didn't just put it in Oklahoma. And it seems to be the case because ethnic groups, 5% are Native American. This reminds me of the map of all the proposed Jewish homelands before Israel was introduced. So where Israel is today has always been an idea, but then there was also Cyprus and Crimea. There's Uganda and Madagascar, even an Australian state in the outback, and then the US had something just kind of south of Alaska, even the entire country of Argentina? Wait, what? Now there is actually already a Jewish autonomous oblast in Russia. Everyone loves to talk about their flag over there. So since there was already a proposed territory in the US to have possibly been a Jewish state, maybe this isn't quite that far-fetched. We have one Israel, but what about Israel 2? I always make that joke. 10 out of 10. Say hello to the new Republic of Canada. Or I guess it's really not new in this universe. This is just how Canada is. So I'm assuming this is a world where the French-speaking part of Canada united with French Louisiana, clearly never sold to the United States, and they're now called the Republic of Canada with a sideways Italian flag. Remember, before the Louisiana Purchase, the French had all of this land down the center. Clearly, there must have been a war for the Midwestern states, though. Also, does British Canada still exist somewhere right here in the middle? Obviously, a lot less powerful, though. No, they stole Ohio from us. Maybe this universe isn't so bad after all. Obviously, the official language is French. It was formed sometime in 1793, and they have 154 million people living in it. Hockey reigns supreme, probably as far south as Louisiana, as well as a whole lot of other interesting cultural changes too. Interesting that Quebec is not the capital. It's actually Lafayette down here. Surprised it's not like New Orleans or something. What's even more interesting about this map is just imagining what else is going on in the North American continent. I mean, the US definitely still exists and they're independent. And is there just like a mega Mexico out this way? Possibly, who knows, a pretty big Russian colony as well from Alaska. The continent would probably be divided between like two or maybe even more superpowers. A world where the Empire of Atlantis becomes the new Roman Empire. Something to note is this is actually after the fall of the Roman Empire, and they are claiming to be the new heirs. So this massive landmass smashed in between the Atlantic Ocean is what was thought to be Atlantis out here. There's actually several fantasy maps and lores about this whole thing, but this person took it to a whole nother level where Atlantis kind of becomes the British Empire in a way. And if it's after the fall of the Romans, I don't see why not. Not only did they reconnect all the Roman lands, I mean, literally almost perfect. They went all the way down to Ethiopia too, but they obviously have more stuff than just the Romans had. They have Norway, Iceland, Greenland. They were able to island hop their way to Newfoundland and get to most of North America. That's a pretty thick Texas. They also island hop through the Caribbean and get a pretty massive Guyana down here, even an Atlantic Brazil here in Sao Paulo. Of course, they also get some South Africa and Guinea as well. This would be quite the maritime nation. Smack dab in this ocean surrounded by all these land masses, they'd be pretty OP. The thing that we're forgetting about here is depending on the time period, would they be able to hold back the Mongols? Because the Mongols would definitely be coming from Mesopotamia, that's for sure. Maybe it's after the Mongols or something. Maybe they have bigger problems than just that. They still can't seem to conquer the Germanic tribes. Is this what Plato was talking about all along? This map is titled A Much Fairer Treaty of Versailles, and I think that should be taken with a grain of salt. Obviously, this is a Germany post WW1. So in our timeline, Germany was forced to cede lands, but not exactly this much. I mean, they still had to give stuff to Poland, but they definitely didn't see the same fate as Austria-Hungary, who doesn't exist anymore. Now, to be fair, Germany does still exist here, yet they're kind of just in this little chunk right here. There are these massive green League of Nation mandates, the Rhineland that's demilitarized, also this territory south of Denmark. This stuff is still given to Poland, and this becomes its own independent state. The more the merrier, I guess. We also have the Republic of Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden. France, of course, gets all this stuff, which they've always wanted. Belgium gets this teeny tiny little chunk of land. There's also this Rhinish Republic. The Netherlands don't get anything, but you know what? They didn't participate in World War I. Neither did Switzerland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, so that's, you know, why they don't get anything. Then finally, this teeny tiny teensy little island goes to Australia. Thanks for playing. I feel like just France was here at the Treaty of Versailles. Nobody else was allowed to come. Maybe Poland too. Here's France's thank you to Britain for all that they've done. How nice of them. This is very similar to what one man wanted for Germany after WW1. He just wanted to completely eliminate them. I mean, at least they were allowed to still stay alive here. I guess that's fair. A map which is called What If the Sun Fell? Or in other words, what if North Korea finally snapped? The 1610 attack refers to October 16th, I guess, when North Korea decided to launch everything. This is as of 2027 at like 8:23 PST. Now, it wasn't just North Korea that were dropping these. Some of the reds are coming from China and the USA. I don't know why the US decided to launch from, I don't know, New York. I have a feeling a rocket wouldn't have to travel that far to slap North Korea. My only question is, why at China as well? Why would they do that? I get them blowing up South Korea and Japan, as well as Hawaii and LA. Doesn't look like it missed its target. They also got Seattle and then Alaska too. If you're trying to do the most damage, why Alaska? I guess maybe they were thinking like if they destroyed Hawaii and Alaska, they'd be a little bit safer. So there were a lot of failed attacks, one in San Francisco, one in Shanghai. Tokyo one failed to launch. The Seoul one failed to launch. There were also successes as well in Busan, as well as LA. Well, I'm gone. Honolulu and Seattle. And China and the USA, they responded with 2 of 2, hitting Pyongyang and this North Korean city. Yeah, that would be quite the bloody event. Though it would be horrible, life would go on for everyone else. All life on North Korea would probably cease to exist though. Japan saw last time what happens when you sink our boats in Hawaii. I seriously doubt North Korea would live through this event to tell the tale. South Korea would probably become its own little island because this would be banished into the sea. What a scary thought though. What if the Sino-Soviet War went nuclear? So back in the 1960s, there was a little schism between the Soviets and the PRC. This was just a little divide between these two massive nations. Well, what if there was a huge conflict that then broke out between them? Pretty terrifying thought. So it's 1969 and the Russians immediately take back Manchuria. They also attack through Central Asia. They're moving through these lands. Again, China's gonna have most of their population here. The Chinese are also led by Mao Zedong. The casualties would be absolutely immense. Remember, this is a China back in the 70s, only like maybe 20 years after the Chinese Civil War. I think it's fair to say the Soviets would probably dominate, but this much? That's the question. Would they push this far into China? I mean, at the end of the day, China still has a large population. They weren't at 1 billion yet, but they did have 818 million, whereas the Soviets only had about 250 million. Also, I think they're dropping a ton of nukes everywhere too, so that's kind of a big deal. Maybe that's the big factor here. Okay, since nukes are involved, I guess anything is possible. The countries never visited by a sitting German Kaiser, or countries without an official visit from a sitting German Kaiser. Now that map is actually a parody map of this real-life map of countries never visited by a sitting US president. However, in this world, Germany has won WW1. So still, a lot of Africa have not been visited, as well as parts of Central Asia, Southeast Asia, as well as this part of South America. I love that we have the old school borders here in Europe. That's such a small detail, but really important. Because Germany won World War I, there's still an Austria-Hungary. There isn't, however, an Ottoman Empire. They've still collapsed. There is also a very massive Soviet Union here, though, but there are probably puppet states to the German Empire, this Ukraine Ukraine and Baltic states. The Soviets were forced to lose a little bit of Central Asia, but not quite as much. There is no North and South Korea because there wouldn't be a Cold War, so there's no like line here. I don't know if this is still a French colony in Southeast Asia or if this is just a massive Vietnam. The Western Hemisphere hasn't really changed too much. It's pretty much the exact same. Now, I would think that more parts of Africa would have been visited by this sitting German Kaiser because more than likely Germany would have had a lot more territory in Africa if they won WW1. I mean, I don't know if it would have been to this extent, but I mean, they would have got a lot of stuff. Maybe they didn't win quite as bad to steal everything from France and the French colonies over here. I mean, they literally took everything from France, even French Southeast Asia. Because this map is parodying a map from 2023, I'm assuming this map would be a 2023 where Germany won WW1. There's some interesting arguments that maybe the Kaiser would have maybe come to some of these places. I really want the lore here. What if the Cold War was fought between even bigger superpowers? And also, it's still going on here in 2023. So obviously in this timeline, I guess there was no Sino-Soviet split, or maybe there was and they just like, I don't know, made it up. I mean, they just kind of got past their differences because we have a huge combination of empires together. Also, the Korean Peninsula is united as well as Finland has fallen. Then we also have the Federation of America, where I guess the US has vassalized Canada and possibly all of Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Maybe not exactly vassalized. Maybe it's like a European Union, except in the US. An American Union. They also have Greenland. They took that away from Denmark, maybe. They have the green stripe to represent Mexico, I'm assuming. Maybe some of the other countries. And again, you can't go wrong with the hammer and sickle for the Soviet side. The Union of Socialist People's Republic is actually divided into 3 different capital cities. There's Beijing for legislative, Moscow for executive, and Astana, I know I pronounced that wrong, for judicial. That is here in Kazakhstan. Nice to see they've got some representation. They even have Afghanistan involved. Oh, I almost missed the detail here that Taiwan is in it too. I think it's fair to say that this side might also not necessarily be one giant empire, but like some sort of union or federation. I mean, it does literally say union up here. The capital city actually for the Federation of America is in Houston. They decided to adjust that a little bit more down to account for all the new territories in the south. Mexico City would actually be the biggest city in this entire federation. Washington, D.C. is still a regional capital though. Finally, with bigger powers in this Cold War, there are going to be a lot more people involved. The continent of Europe is still completely divided, except Yugoslavia is no longer neutral. They finally chose a side. Pretty huge chunks of the Spanish-speaking side is a part of the Federation, or they're allied to the Federation of America, except for Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia. They speak Spanish, but they're not involved. Brazil is saying no. Of course, the English-speaking world is going to be on the Federation of America's side. Australia, New Zealand. There's also India and Pakistan here. The one constant in all the universes, Switzerland is neutral. North Africa is on the American side, but small areas like the Horn of Africa is on the socialist side. Let's just definitely hope this doesn't go nuclear. And big thanks to my patrons. Drew, I forgot to kidnap you. Next date is March 19th, 2023 at 6:30
Boy, do I
PM.
love Arby's.
Drew's Eritrean grandma.
Portugal is not
Drew's
Balkans.
Argentinian
$20
grandpa.
is a lot, Drew.
aPhatNarwhal.
Bryton is the
Caleb,
best. The
Mexican
Mexican
760.
good
Jack
old
Traven's annoying
John
friend.
Denver
Burritos
is
and
Pork
Desmond
Girl.
560.
Fresh
Animation.
Taylor.
RyeThePie.
The
Weekend.
Weekend.
The Great
Ralphie.
Commonwealth.
Twickenhamster.
Carmel S. and ZaneyBoi.